The 1960s were a time of change in America. Although it wasn't the first time in history, these years marked a crucial advancement of minority social equality. Similar to most changes, the civil rights movement was highly controversial and caused a division within the population, those who believed in racial equality and those who opposed it. The presidential election of 1964 represented this division.
In the 1964 presidential election, sitting President Lyndon B. Johnson was the Democratic nominee. He ran against the Republican candidate Senator Barry Goldwater of Arizona. Goldwater was extremely unpopular with modern Americans because of his deeply conservative political beliefs and his racist undertones. Johnson's campaign advocated a series of anti-poverty programs known as the Great Society and successfully portrayed Goldwater as being a dangerous extremist. Johnson easily won the presidency, carrying 44 of the 50 states and the District of Columbia. In this video, we will be portraying our own political campaign videos.
Politics is the art of achieving the maximum amount of freedom for individuals that is consistent with the maintenance of social order.
Equality, widely understood, as our founding fathers understood, it led to liberty and to the emancipation of creative differences, wrongly understood, and it has been so tragically in our time. It leads first to conformity and then to despotism. Okay. I have no idea how to react to this really. I really don't.
I will never vote for a public accommodation clause in any civil rights bill because I think it's unconstitutional. I think it tampers with the right to assembly, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and freedom of property.
So how do you feel about this?
I think it's really hypocritical how he emphasized saying that politics is the art of achieving the maximum amount of freedom when he's talking about white supremacy. That doesn't even make sense. And I think this is the time of when minorities should be rising up as well, not just the white supremacy.
How do you feel knowing that the man who said this might be the president of the United States?
Not happy.
Why?
Because him saying that African Americans shouldn't have equal rights and me being one is just a big no for me. I wouldn't want that at all.
How do you feel about this, what has been said, and the fact that this man could be our next president?
I think it's totally racist, and I don't want him to be my president.
And who has your vote?
Lyndon B. Johnson.
Who has your vote?
Lyndon B. Johnson.
Who has your vote for this next election?
LBJ.
I am Lyndon B. Johnson, and I approve this message.
In 1960, our country elected John F. Kennedy to serve as our president. His policies weren't favored by all, rightfully so, and under his presidency, the nation had an eruption of protests against the federal government because of these policies. The African American population caused havoc in public businesses by rallying up supporters and attempting to gain momentum for their movement.
When John F. Kennedy was shot, our country, in its messy state, was turned over to Lyndon B. Johnson. Is he handling the protests and riots and rebellions correctly? Dealing with them in a manner that will eliminate the chaos and bring the original way of living back to reality? Or is it time to see a change? It's time to think about our future, America. Make the right choice and vote for Goldwater.
And unlike Lyndon B. Johnson, I know how to hold a dog correctly. And dogs love me. I'm Barry Goldwater, and I approve this message.
Barry Goldwater recently said,
"It is a fact that Lyndon Johnson and his curious crew seem to believe that progress in this country is best served simply and directly through the ever-expanding gift power of the everlasting growing federal government. One thing we all know, and I assure you I do, that's a much easier way getting votes than my way."
Goldwater bashed the same growing federal government that had started a war on poverty to try to push Congress to pass legislation attacking illiteracy, unemployment, and discrimination. Lyndon B. Johnson isn't fighting for reform for votes or trying to have a federal takeover. He is growing the federal government because if he didn't, these problems would not be on the path towards resolution. He is trying to create an educated, working, and peaceful America for now and tomorrow. Vote for Johnson this November because he is doing what's best for America. I am Lyndon B. Johnson, and I approve this message.
Although Lyndon B. Johnson won the election by a large majority, Barry Goldwater was not discouraged from a career in politics. In 1968, he was re-elected twice into the Senate and served as chairman of the Select Committee on Intelligence and the Committee on Armed Services. Towards the end of his career, Goldwater retired from the Senate and grew libertarian, while still strongly supporting Reagan's conservative presidency. He became an advocate for gay rights, lobbying for them to be able to serve openly in the military. Also differing from his once extremely right-wing views, Goldwater started to show support for abortion rights and the legalization of medical marijuana. After living a life during a time of great change in America, Goldwater passed away in 1998 after being diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease.
In January 1965, the Great Society program became Johnson's agenda for Congress. The program consisted aids to education, attack on disease, urban renewal, beautification, conservation, war against poverty, and the removal of obstacles to the right to vote. Most notably, millions of elderly people benefited from Medicare amendment to the Social Security Act. In addition to Johnson's program, he advocated space exploration in opposition to segregation. By 1967, the war in Vietnam greatly consumed Johnson's presidency. He expressed his disapproval of communist influence by continuing the fight in Vietnam. Criticism and anti-war protests spoke out against his decision and eventually caused Johnson to not seek re-election. On January 22, 1973, Johnson died of a heart attack. Before the day of his death, he learned that peace was at hand in Vietnam.
It is a fact that Lyndon Johnson and his curious crew seem to believe that progress... There'll be a red light.
Okay.
Is it the red dot?
I think racism is unconstitutional.
I don't know what to do.
Fact.
Wait, I have to sound like
You can keep rolling, because we can cut it.